The regulars.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen for Wednesday, March 9th, 2016. Welcome, everyone who's here this evening. The first item on our agenda is the Girl Scout Proclamation. This is celebrating 104 years of Girl Scouting, so I'd like to ask any Scouts and troop leaders to please come up here for the proclamation. If the other selectmen would like to join us, please.
Get your picture in the paper.
You're the Stella. Not all of you, but a lot of you grew since last year. Oh. So we look forward to this every year. This is a Girl Scout Day proclamation celebrating 104 years of Girl Scouting, and not one of them looks a day over 100. Whereas March 12th, 2016 marks the 104th anniversary of the Girl Scouts of the United States of America, which began in 1912 when Savannah, Georgia native Juliet Gordon Lowe gathered 18 girls to provide them the opportunity to develop physically, mentally, and spiritually. And whereas 1912 was also the year in which Girl Scouting started in the state of Connecticut. And whereas for more than 100 years, Girl Scouting has helped build millions of girls and women of courage, confidence, and character who act to make the world a better place. And whereas the Girl Scout leadership experience helped girls discover themselves and their values, connect with others, and take action to make the world a better place. And whereas through the dedication, time, and talent of volunteers of different backgrounds, abilities, and areas of expertise, Girl Scouts of Connecticut offers the Girl Scout leadership experience to more than 35,000 girls in grades K through 12 across the state of Connecticut. And whereas the Girl Scout Gold Award, the highest honor in Girl Scouting, celebrating its 100th year, requires girls to make a measurable and sustainable difference in their community, assess a need and design a solution, find the resources and support to make it happen, and complete the project. And, only two more. Whereas core programs around environment, stewardship, anti-bullying techniques, science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, and healthy living help girls develop a solid foundation in leadership. And whereas today, more than 59 million American women are Girl Scout alumni, and 2.7 million girls and adult volunteers are active members. Now, therefore, I, Ellen Scalettar, by virtue of the authority vested in me as first selectman of the town of Woodbridge, do hereby applaud the Girl Scouts of the United States of America, and certainly of Connecticut, for more than 100 years of leadership and expertise as the voice for and of girls, and proudly proclaim March 12, 2016 as Girl Scout Day, dated at Woodbridge, Connecticut, this 9th day of March 2016. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of you.
Congratulations, girls. Thank you. Way to go. What'd you do? How'd you do that?
I always find good.
Especially the girl.
Congratulations. Okay, we now have public comment. Amy?
Good evening. Amy Morello, 184 Rimmon Road. I'm here to address the environmental contamination on the Woodbridge Country Club or golf course. I first learned that there was contamination a few weeks ago, and since then, as Ellen Scalettar and a couple of others in the town know, I've been coming to Town Hall, helping a concerned resident review the files under the Freedom of Information Act. As a former first selectman and someone who served at the Department of Environmental Protection, I think it's vital for the town to follow the state's cleanup requirements and protect the town residents and the environment. Unfortunately, I've been told, although I have not yet been able to verify it, that the town should have initiated cleanup 3 years ago, in early 2013. As cleanup was supposed to start within 3 years of filing the Form 3, and the Form 3 was filed with the State Department of Environmental Protection in 2009. Based on the information that I have been able to review so far, I have concerns and a lot of questions. So I'm glad that the environmental consultant, HRP Associates, is on the agenda and will be appearing before the Board of Selectmen later this evening. And I have some questions for you to suggest to offer to that consultant. The first question is to confirm when the Form 3 was filed. It's a very important question because as of October 1st, 2009, the state law changed and cleanup was required to be completed within 8 years. From what I understand, although I've not seen the Form 3 itself, it was filed before October 1st, 2009 by a few weeks. So there is indeed no deadline for finishing the cleanup, but there is still a timeline for starting the cleanup. As I said, 3 years from the time the form was filed. And if it was filed in 2009, we'll give a little bit of a fudge and say that cleanup should have begun in early 2013. The town's file does include a Phase 3 report from the HRP Associates. It's right here. As you can see, it's marked draft. It's dated December 19th, 2011. I've been told that this is the final, but I hope you will confirm that with the consultant and that you will ask if any further reports have been completed by HRP, which should be in the town's files. In this document on page 29 of the Phase 3 report, it states that, quote, on-site investigation results reveal a number of release areas that warrant further action in the 5 operations areas of the site, end quote. It also, at page 35 and 36, summarizes HRP's recommendations, which include removal of contaminated soil or ash from 8 locations and further evaluation of remediation requirements in 8 locations. I hope you will ask them if any action has been taken to remove the contaminated soil and ash and otherwise remediate that contamination. I would also ask whether or not further testing analysis has been done, as recommended in the Phase 3 report, to better define the site's environmental contamination. Separately, the town submitted a significant environmental hazard report. That's the document which is attached here, I believe, to a response from DEP. This is what I could find in the file. The significant environmental hazard report was filed with DEP, as I said, and according to DEP's letter dated April 14th, it was received April 1st, 2011. In this acknowledgement by DEP, which is the Department of Environmental Protection, now known as the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, it directs the town to, quote, inform persons with potential for exposure, post warning signs around the perimeter of the impacted area, and secure the area to limit access to the polluted soil until abatement remediation of the impact soil is completed. Further, the letter says that within 30 days of, quote, within 30 days of receipt of this acknowledgement, please submit a letter report of your actions, including any test results and recommendations for further action or monitoring, end quote. I hope you'll ask what action was taken to respond to the significant environmental hazard acknowledgement as directed by DEP, and whether or not a letter was in fact submitted to DEP within 30 days. I've not received a copy of that through FOIA. Hopefully a letter was submitted. According to this significant environmental hazard report, The significant environmental hazard of concern is soil contamination, and the pollutants are technical chlordane and arsenic. I hope you will ask what the level of contaminations are and how they compare to the state's cleanup standards. The indication of the letter is that they are something on the order of, the levels are exceeding 30 times the applicable direct exposure criteria, which is a particular type of criteria. There are various kinds. Next, figure 3 of the phase 3 report, a copy of which is here, actually shows chlordane contamination. This is releases in the maintenance area. If you're not aware of it, the maintenance area, I only have this little map that the town issued with the RFP. But if this is the golf course, this is the maintenance area. And this is 60 Woodfield Road, which I'll get to in a minute. But there, as you can see, there are homes down just below. So this figure 3 shows chlordane only. It doesn't show, excuse me, it's upside down. It doesn't show the arsenic, which is also mentioned in the significant environmental hazard. But with respect to chlordane, it shows different levels of contamination. The darkest blue is the highest level, and then it goes down to lighter areas of blue as there is lesser contamination. There's a series of questions that ought to be asked about this figure. I think the first question is, what type of releases does this indicate? Is this a spill? What is it? You know, how'd this get there? Then the question is, does it indicate migration of the chlordane, since there is lesser amounts sort of coming out from the darkest area, as well as the initial release. One of the questions would be whether or not there's groundwater contamination, as well as soil contamination, and how do these contamination levels, which vary, compare to the cleanup standard levels. Now that's important in part because at least this figure indicates they've only tested to these boundaries that are indicated in blue. If that's very close to the cleanup criteria, you wouldn't go out and you wouldn't need to further test. But if they're substantially higher than the cleanup criteria, it may be that you need to investigate to see if there's chlordane farther out than what's indicated on this figure. Another question would be, since this was data from 2011 or earlier, which is the last reported date of testing, is it possible that the chlordane contamination has spread? Now, the significant environmental hazard report, which mentioned chlordane and also mentioned arsenic, does state that drinking water supply wells within 500 feet have been inventoried, but asserts that it is not applicable in response to the form's direction to, quote, identified, affected, or threatened drinking water supply wells. I hope you'll ask why not applicable is the appropriate response. The phase 3 report, going back to that, because I've had to go back and forth between these to try to figure this out, identifies 48 private wells as down gradient of the country club site. And I hope you will inquire as to whether or not any of the homeowners down gradient from the chlorine contamination have been or should be informed of the up gradient contamination, and whether the town has or should test any of their wells. Under the leaking underground storage tank program, known as the LESS program, the town has in the past tested nearby drinking water wells after discovering a leaking underground fuel storage tank. I don't know what is recommended here, but I hope, given that the town has done that in the past, that you will inquire. I also don't know where the arsenic contamination is located. I have an idea, but there is not a figure that provides it exactly. I hope you will inquire and find out if there's any reason to believe that the arsenic is contaminating groundwater as well as the identified soil. And lastly, looking at databases on the DEP website, I discovered that there's actually another site with a significant environmental hazard report. It is 60 Woodfield Road. 60 Woodfield Road was once a part of the Country Club of Woodbridge. It was subdivided and sold around the time of the Country Club of Woodbridge sale to the town. In September 2009, the SEH, or Significant Environmental hazard report was filed, and it identified pollution in a drinking water well. Here again, I've been told, but I haven't actually seen the form myself, that in this instance the contamination is chloroform and a filter was put on the well. The question is whether the town has ever directed HRP or any other consultant to find out the type of contamination and the source of the contamination. I do have a couple other questions. I understand that there's been an estimate of costs, I hope, for cleanup. I hope you'll look into those, whether those are based on what was known at the time of the Phase 3 report, or whether there's any additional information, and actually how they could estimate when if they have to do further testing as recommended, an analysis by HRP, if there's squishiness to those numbers, or indeed a change in those numbers since it's been, I guess, 4 years or so since they were provided to the town in 2012, according to the website. So I'd be happy to give these questions to the Board of Selectmen. I appreciate your taking the time to listen to me, because there was no opportunity to offer public comment after the HRP Associates presentation. I've taken the time to arm you, I hope, with some good questions going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your recent interest in the topic, Amy. Anyone else for public?
Good evening. I'm Adrienne Michi Smith. I live at 17 Ansonia Road in Woodbridge, and I'm here, as is my wont, to comment on the Country Club of Woodbridge. I grew up in Derby, up on the hill, and when I used to drive down 243 in order to get down to the co-op or whatever. This is a long time, very long time ago, obviously. And then my husband and I built a home on 243, and I was very happy that it was across the street from the golf course, because I figured this is a good place to build your house. My husband and I in particular, have taken the golf course for granted. And you know what they say, it only goes to show that you don't know what you've got until it's gone. So my husband and I are planning to join because we really think this is a terrific asset to the town. And I'd like to see it stay intact, as you all know. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Adrienne. Anyone else?
How you doing? Roger Sherman, 5 Fairview Road. I live right by the golf course, and I'm very happy to say I joined the pool today. And it was, I guess they got the okay to start selling memberships Friday, and already there was 14 people signed up. So I'm happy to say the new rates are welcomed, by the residents, and I believe once it gets out, you'll get a lot of people to sign up. I'm for the club. There's a lot of action going on up there today with the good weather, a lot of golfers, and I'm very opposed to any development on the property. Toll Brothers, it was, we had voted down twice, and then now it's back again. It's keep on getting pushed back and forth. It seems like it will never go away. So the only way we can get Toll to go away is to make the club profitable. And I started a Facebook page, and I've been posting articles on the history of Woodbridge and articles on the club. And I've gotten a lot of good response. And the Facebook page is Woodbridge Alliance, and also a webpage says for Say No to Toll. That is, my slogan, and I am the sole person of Woodbridge Alliance. So I welcome anybody to join in, see the page, and comment on, and join the club. Just enjoy that piece of property. It's a great place. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Margaret?
Margaret Hamilton.
Oh, I'm sorry.
28 Park Lane. I attended the board and commission meeting that you all set up to deliver the facts about the country club property and the, all the varying history and where we're at now. And these were all things that you had all heard. I thought it was an excellent idea. It was an excellent meeting. I think there were a lot of people there who did not understand the history, didn't understand the facts, and I know you guys all do, and put those forward to the boards and commissions. And I think there's a plan to put those forward to the entire town, at the appropriate time. So I just thought the discussion of the facts instead of some of the there's as many opinions in town as there are people in town. So I thought it was very refreshing to get the information in the way that it was presented. I know Tony did a ton of work, as always. Thank you, Tony, as well as Ellen and the board. So I just wanted to say thank you. I thought it was very productive. I know there's another one coming up. I'm sure it'll be very, very helpful to everyone. And I know it's eventually going to roll out, well, and anybody could have attended. So people who were interested could have been there. But thank you. I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, Ilya Alexiadis, 14 Seymour Road. I too want to talk about the country club, and I too enjoyed the presentation of the joint boards meeting because, with the country club issue, facts matter rather than confusion and misinformation. And in that regard, I want to thank our Board of Selectmen and the town leadership for soliciting that legal opinion by Attorney Grogan's, which was very thorough and well-founded, and really helps further the discussion about what we decide to do with the country club. And it answered many of the questions raised and refuted many of the issues raised by Selectwoman Kayne in her letter to the editor. So I applaud the selectmen for getting that excellent opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Bob?
Bob Hill, 68 Acorn Hill Road. Just three quick things. First of all, I wasn't able to make last week's meeting. I was traveling, but I had a chance to watch it on a replay in terms of the whole pool discussion. And I think, Susan, at the end, you summed it up really well, how well everyone worked together in a very short time frame to identify an opportunity and move quickly to respond to it. I think the work, I know I met with Ellen and Tony, and then Tony separately with Anthony Taddy, and kind of working through really new concept for the pool for this season. Hopefully that generates and encourages to hear some of the initial response already in terms of membership, and hopefully it was a little bit different than where we thought we were going, but I think that'll be positive, and I think that'll hopefully add to the income of the pool. So I want to thank you for the efforts there, and Susan, your comment at the end there, which was like really sometimes people forget as you're working through a problem that how quickly that we went through that. My second comment is I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for your efforts going through the budget, and in particular last week when the Board of Finance met, Ellen, when you pushing really our recommendation with John's situation. I think that your effort and diligence from Board of Selectmen understanding that situation should be applauded. I think the Board of Finance probably needs to get themselves up to speed a little bit more in terms of what led to that recommendation, because I don't think all the facts, especially some of the comments I heard at that meeting were completely understood how we got to that point. So the Rec Commission basically, any raises for the directors usually comes from the Board of Selectmen, not from the Rec Commission, but when we identified that there was an issue, we made the recommendation. So that's kind of where that get, and there was information we provided that each of you got in terms of salaries of other rec directors. So hopefully before all is said and done, we'll get that straight. So, and then the last thing is echoing the comment about the meeting we had about the country club, and the next one that happens Thursday, or tomorrow, right? I found that meeting very helpful to not only myself, but have a chance to participate in it. Other people participated, get more information out there, and I thought it was really the tone of the meeting and the way everyone conducted themselves, and even residents that sat in the meeting then and watched that didn't participate were very positive after that meeting. So it's encouraging. There's good dialogue going on, and there's some ideas being thrown out, and there's some positive things happening with the golf course in terms of the golf, and obviously the weather is in our favor right now, and hopefully the membership of the pool works well too. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, if not, Eva.
I'll be very brief. David Lober, 35 Weppawa Road. I have some good news to share concerning the Country Club of Woodbridge. First, the revenues at the golf operation have reached the point that 2016 will likely be the last year that the course operation will require any financial input or help from the town and will become profitable. In addition, the club has pumped over $1 million into the local economy and has made $188,000 in either direct or facilitated charitable contributions. It has also poured many hundreds of thousands of dollars of its own money into improving and upgrading the property. Second, a New Haven food service vendor is interested in opening a dining facility at the club, a potential source of revenue for the town and an additional driver of revenue at the golf course. Third, the structural integrity of the clubhouse and its safety is not in question, but the building has been secured to prevent vandalism and other crime. I would propose that the Board of Selectmen issue requests for proposals for interested parties to bid on food service operations and repairs of the clubhouse. I would also propose that the clubhouse be made available for tour so that the townspeople can see just what an incredible structure it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else? Okay, before we go on to the Woodbridge Board of Education, just a couple of things. We will be talking more about the country club this evening, and we have our environmental consultants here. I just want to be sure everyone understands at this point that the fact of the contamination at the country club has been public information since 2009, Tony? Yeah. And I'm a little surprised that Ms. Morella, who was the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection and formerly first selectman, didn't know about it, but I certainly believe that. But I just want to be sure that everybody knows this has been out in the public domain. We've talked about it continuously because when we talk about the costs related to the country club, one of the issues that continually comes up is the cleanup costs. So that's very important. And also, I would hope that when someone has such concerns such as this, I think people know my door is open, and it would have been very helpful to have these questions to talk about them sometime in advance. I don't believe, well, I know that I've never heard from Amy or anyone else about these issues, and I don't believe Tony has over all these years. So I'll explain where we are in the process, and our consultants, of course, will answer some of the questions which are technical. If they're not prepared tonight, we'll get answers going forward. I've not heard from any New Haven vendor who's interested in the property, and we can talk more about that later, but I haven't heard anything about that. And I'll also be sure you understand the numbers according to Billy Casper Golf and about whether there's profit or continued need for cost by the town. And we'll make that clear and try to return to facts in our conversation. So with that, we'll go to item number 3, which is Dr. Stella, Superintendent of the Woodbridge Board of Education.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to give an update. Spring is certainly in the air, but no matter what the season, learning continues at Beecher Road School. And we know that a strong academic program is very important at the school, but so is the social emotional development of our children, and the two go hand in hand. We have an updated major plan, 2-year action plan that will be presented to the Board of Education on March 21st, but some of the items are already in motion. In February, we had a Be Kind Week. It's just to rally everyone and focus on our major goals of our plan, and there were activities throughout the school. Part of those activities included bullying workshops, And we've teamed up with the Anti-Defamation League as a partner and the PTO. And they came in and did wonderful workshops for us, hands-on and interactive workshops for our 6th graders. And just a short while ago that we had a Superintendent's Academy night, that's what we call it, and it was for parents. It was very well attended, and again, it was an interactive program with the parents. So we're very thankful to the Anti-Defamation League and our PTO for supporting that. We have a steady stream of new families moving into the district. Enrollment is currently approximately 800. One of the main reasons, as we know, for families with children moving to Woodbridge is the wonderful town and the school system. So with your continued support, we'll enhance the academic rigor, but in a nurturing environment that respects the social and emotional development of children. And as you're aware, any good school, besides high marks, good academics, needs a special magic. And there's magic all around Beecher Road School. I just came from the school that never sleeps, the wonderful rec programs going on, the extended day, but there was family yoga going on. And there were 60 people there of all ages, from 2 years old up to, I'm not sure how old, but stretching in all directions. And we had Read Across America event this past week. And that's something that really brings the community into the school. And members, Mrs. Scalettar and Tony Anastasio was there, and Tony Genovese, also Beth Heller was there, as well as Superintendent Dumais from Amity. So, and many other representatives from town departments. It meant a lot to our children to see wonderful role models come in, choose a book, talk with them about it, laugh about it, and have conversations. So thank you all for that. We appreciate that. Alice in Wonderland is coming to town. The Beecher Road School Drama Club, which is part of our extended day program, is mounting a production of that. Over 70 children from grade 1 to 6 are participating in it. And according to inside sources, expect scenic and costume design like nothing you've ever seen before. And you can take a look at the parent update I gave you there for kind of a glimpse at that. So performances will be held on March 17th at 4:30 p.m. and March 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the Owl Players Theater, which translated is the South Assembly Hall. So that's the music this past weekend. To talk about magic in the school, it extends beyond the walls of the school. Selected Beecher Road School music students who auditioned for spots in the Southern Connecticut Regional Musical Festival last December performed with the best in the state. Under the batons of nationally recognized conductors, the quality of our 6th grade students performing alongside their middle school peers was just short of inspirational, magnificent. That's the instrumental and also the choral group. So bravo to our young musicians and our music teachers who are so dedicated to give up their time, Bill Lech and Nadia Marroquin. Also, as part of our DARE program, and we're very thankful to the town and the police department for supporting a resource DARE officer at our school, but the second year in a row, our Beecher Road School 6th graders won first prize in the nation in internet safety. And it was a close, by a nose finish there because, what was it? The score was they finished with 93.72%. And they nosed out a team from Georgia with 93.64%. So from what I told our students, it was that last-minute buzzer that did the winning. But we're thankful to Officer Lynch, but also to our tech team and our teachers for over the years really promoting internet safety, and bullying comes into that also. We're thankful to our parent community. They participate, they support us in so many ways. We had multiple celebrations of the Chinese New Year, the Year of the Monkey. The Chinese Club at Amity did a wonderful job and brought the whole community together, and from elementary, middle, and high school. And also we have parents working with our staff promoting a Chinese culture and language program after school. And that organization, that club also performed as well. Work on the solar panels has begun at the school, and thank you again for your continued support. Okay. Any questions?
There's something you forgot, Dr. Stella.
What did I forget?
It's the 100. You're saying that the magic of Beecher extends very far, and I'm part of something at Massaro Community Farm where we're celebrating
yes,
100
absolutely.
years
Absolutely.
of the farm, and I was astonished as to how many submissions of artwork were given to the farm. I will be hanging that at the First Church, what do you call
Congregational
it?
Church.
Congregational Church, and it'll be on view at the church on Sunday for our annual meeting. I hope you come to it. The submissions are awesome.
Wonderful. You know, Maria, I can't keep up with all the things that are happening, so
I
I'm glad you
know,
mentioned
I
it.
know,
But
but
you know,
that's-
but I'll
that's-
add something to that.
Yes.
Because from the inspiration from the farm and the community,
Right.
the entire school, Beecher Road School, is involved with creating murals. Every grade level will have a different one, and it's an ongoing event that will take several months to do. And we will present these murals, and it's aligned with the celebration of the 100 year of Massaro Farm.
Wonderful.
So thank you for inspiring our children to get involved with this
I'd
here.
like to make a slightly different point,
Yeah.
and that is that on March 22nd, I believe, the first Selectman's Wisdom of Woodbridge series is about internet security, and I'm thinking maybe Beecher could come and teach us that, right? Given that they did as well as they did, right? I mean, it couldn't hurt.
March 22nd.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
That's
Thank you
great.
so much. Good.
Thank you, Dr. Stella. Okay, the next is Jeff Block. Mr. Block is here to seek permission to hold a road race in memory of Eva Block on June 18th. Good evening.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for having me, making the time. We're looking for June 19th to put on a 5K race. We've already received approval from or support from the Woodbridge Fire Department and the Woodbridge Rec Department. We've talked to the police department, so we know we go through them for the permits and stuff like that. We're looking to have the 5K, the same 5K that the Woodbridge Rec Department runs, same race course. We're a 501(c) called One Innocent Life. It's for fire safety and raising awareness for college students. Excuse me. So we're doing this to raise funds to build the organization out. My daughter grew up here.
We
Sorry.
understand. We can explain for you. I know that your daughter was in a fire at her college and died in the fire, and this is an effort to raise funds for the organization, and we certainly appreciate that. You're welcome to say anything more that you'd like, but if you can't, that's fine.
No, we're out there right now. We've had a couple laws put in place. One law put in place in the state of Connecticut already, which essentially notifies tenants whether there's an operative or inoperative sprinkler system. We just proposed, we just went against the SB 86, which was extending the exemption from single-family houses, duplex houses, to the fire marshals, to extend that to 3-family homes. We were opposed to that. We were for removing the 1978 portion of the fire code that allows a house built before 1978 to not have a single smoke detector in it, which is law in the state of Connecticut currently. So we're trying to make efforts on the legal side, also trying to raise the college kids' awareness. So we're working with Wesleyan University right now to do some work with them. And we're doing a lot of video work that we'd like to do. So we're trying to get to the college kids, that 18 to 24-year-old demographic, to raise their awareness about fire safety, because we've reduced the loss of life by fire in this country and the number of fires by 50%. But if you look at the loss of life per 1,000, it hasn't changed. And if we believe in the organization, if we can get to the 18 to 24-year-old demographic, that we can actually make a difference in that number. So this race will be helpful to us.
Well, not only are your goals laudable, it sounds like you've accomplished a great deal already. And I just wanted to clarify one point. We have down June 18th. Did you say 18th or 19th?
18th.
It was 18th.
The Saturday of
Okay.
before Father's Day.
And just to explain to the board, our role here is to approve this, if that's our decision, and then Mr. Block will take the proposal to the Traffic Commission and the Police Department. And they'll deal with the logistics. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just appreciate your time and letting us speak and having the opportunity to run the race here in town.
Are there any questions? Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
And thank you, Jeff, and Barbara, and Harrison for coming.
Thank you
Any
very
other
much.
discussion? Questions?
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Just tidying it up, is there any insurance issue we have?
Tony's looked, I think Tony looked at it, is looking at it.
Yeah, so,
In other words, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
so you have a 501c3?
Yes, we do.
So,
We'll go out and get an event
yeah,
insurance policy.
we'll resolve that with them, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
The roads won't, similar to the recreation when they run the Woodbridge, the roads won't need to be closed off, just that section maybe for a period of time.
That's our understanding. That's not up to us, but that's what it looks like. It's the same as
They
the
close
road
just
race.
that section and reroute, usually. That's the same route.
It's going to be the same route that they use.
Right.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
usually just bypass.
I didn't want to reinvent the wheel.
Anything else?
Good weather.
We don't have to run, we can walk.
You can walk. It's going to be a walk run. You can bring your kid, bring the kids, bring the dogs.
I'm not even sure about that.
If there's nothing else, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for your
much.
good work. Next is the issue of a Historic Documents Preservation Program grant and the discussion of authorization to apply for the grant. Tony, did you want to speak to that? Oh, is-
We discussed this already. What's your percentage?
I can certainly answer any questions. This is an annual grant that we use to restore records in the town clerk's office. And I know you probably know we've done this before. There's a write-up from Stephanie in here about her intention and what she'd like to do with her re-indexing of conversion of handwritten land records to computerized indices from microfilm. It's a big portion of it. And re-index land records from 1952.
Any questions? I believe she did last time.
At the budget hearing.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any questions? No. If not, is there a motion to authorize Stephanie Charliglio to apply for the Historic Documents Preservation Program grant? Thank you. Second? Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay. We're now at the Country Club of Woodbridge update. Some of the update I'll be presenting has already been mentioned, and I think most of it is not. But as was mentioned, we did have the first joint board and commission meeting. It was very well attended and resulted in some new questions being asked, and we've tried to answer them the best we could, and I'll present that information here tonight. Nothing big, but just so that this board has all the information that we'll be presenting at the second meeting, which is tomorrow night. Just about every board and commission was part of this joint meeting. We only asked or recommended to the adjudicatory boards, and that would be Plan and Zoning, Inland Wetlands, and Zoning Board of Appeals, that they not actually participate in the meeting. They could, of course, attend the public as members of the public, but we didn't want to create any issues of conflict of interest if they did participate. One TPZ member actually did come and participate, so if something discussed comes before the commission, he may have to recuse himself, but there were adequate people who weren't there in the meeting, so that was fine. I'll just give you a few of the data points that we researched in response to the questions. If you'd like them in writing, I'll get them to you after this evening. First question, is membership growing? And in fact, this is from 2014 to 2015. We went from 238 members to 251 members. The question was asked how many Woodbridge residents are members, and it's 27, or in 2015, a little less than 10% are Woodbridge residents. The number of rounds played in 2014 and 15, 2014 was 26,500, and 2015, 31,800, so there was an increase there. How many rounds were played by Woodbridge residents? this is 2015, of the 31,000 rounds played, approximately 3,000 were played by Woodbridge residents. So again, it's about 10%. 10% of the members are Woodbridge residents, 10% of the rounds. And how many residents use the golf course? Someone at the meeting said it was over 2,000 residents, but in fact, it was about 800 residents used the golf course at least once. So that's that data that we have. I do want to remind everyone, particularly everyone in the public, that as we look at this right now, the only offer we have is from Toll Brothers. We periodically do have inquiries about the property, but no other offers, and certainly if there's a credible offer, I would bring it to the Board of Selectmen. Something was mentioned this evening about someone who's interested, but I haven't heard that. And if there is, any kind of credible offer, it will be here. And also remind everyone once again that no sale of the property can occur without a vote by town residents. On our fact quest here, and again, it's very difficult because people hear so many things about the country club, and the more we have discussions, the more things we hear that might not be accurate. So I do want to clarify a few things. One of the questions that did come up was the impact of having a municipal course on private courses. And we haven't really answered that question, but I did get a letter, and I subsequently met with Gina Barafati, who is the owner of Oak Lane. And she was concerned that some information that was proffered at the meeting by someone in the audience, not by any of us, was not accurate, and asked that I read portions of her letter to set the record straight, which I'll do tonight and tomorrow night. A gentleman posed a question regarding the possible impact of continued investment or subsidies to CCW on Oak Lane's functioning. I responded that I didn't have the answer to that. She writes that Mr. Taima volunteered information as the past president of the club, and she acknowledges he has substantial experience with Oak Lane, but it's been some time since he's been there, so what he said may have been dated. She says, unfortunately, his response to the question was factually incomplete and inaccurate. He stated we run, this is her words, I'm reading exactly from her letter. He stated we run a, quote, golfnow.com model, close quote. We do sell tee times on Golf Now, but CCW does as well. He stated that we sell at a lower price and a lot of rounds. On any given day, Oak Lane rates are at least comparable to CCW. In most cases, CCW rates are lower. If the rounds data stated at this meeting are correct, CCW sold more rounds last year than Oak Lane did. Most troubling was the statement that, quote, it takes a long time to play, close quote, at Oak Lane. Pace of play is a major factor when golfers choose where to play, and the perception that a course has slow play can be damaging. Golf Now user reviews of pace of play at both courses is currently identical at 3 stars. So I'll make this part of the record and distribute it to you, but I did, she asked that be read into the record, so I've done that. Also, we've talked with Billy Casper Golf. In fact, they have had some concern about the numbers that Dee Kotchkis and tonight Dr. Lauber have been talking about that they don't feel are accurate with respect to the country club. And I've invited them to come probably next month. They'll be here and can ask detailed questions about it. What Ryan Phelps has told us is that Billy Casper is willing probably to continue in the short term, 1, 2, maybe up to 3 years. They think that the cost to the town could come down from what it is now, but it would be at least in the $100,000 range, somewhere in that range. They also feel very strongly that if the town decides to continue owning a golf course and operating a golf course, or I guess if somebody else does as well, but this, it would require 7 figures, this is their words, to effectively bring it up to speed. They talk about irrigation, tees, bunkers, cart paths, and other things. So they'll be here to talk more about that. But again, I just think it's important to keep in mind what the facts are from Billy Casper. If people have other sources, that's fine, but this is what Billy Casper is telling us. I also want to talk about the legal opinions. Aaliyah was here and mentioned one of them, and I know, Maria, you said that I asked for a second opinion because I didn't like the first one. And I take strong exception to that. The two opinions were about different topics and were by people with expertise in their areas. And I think it's very important that people understand that I take the zoning issue very, very seriously. I think it's a very important issue. And I wanted to be sure that we hear from people who have experience and background about what the exposure is for the town, because people are very concerned about it. So we've had two opinions. One was about spot zoning. One was about having any precedent-setting effect of what we do at the country club, and also being how confident we could be that if we allow a certain type of housing, that would remain solid for future buyers. So again, I'm sorry you misunderstood, and I've asked Jerry Weiner to say a little bit more about it. And please, if you have questions about why I do something or what it is, please call me, because that was not at all the case.
So I'm just quoting Maria in your article, and it says, apparently since the first legal opinion did not do the trick, the administration has gone shopping for another outside lawyer to provide yet another outside opinion, all at Woodbridge taxpayer expense. And it's pretty harsh language, and it's not true. I was involved in doing this, actually, and it's in response to all the questions that have been raised about the legalities of whether Toll Brother
Excuse me. If you can't be silent, please leave the room. This is not a moment for public comments. I'm sorry, Cheryl.
Not be talking.
Why not?
Why not?
Cheryl, we are not having a discussion with Cheryl.
So
if you can't be silent here at the meeting, please leave. You're welcome to stay, of course.
I was involved in trying to respond to many of the legitimate questions that were raised by residents about the legalities and precedential nature of what would happen in the town of Woodbridge if, for example, the Board of Selectmen and the town agreed that some development would be possible. And that's a lot of ifs. That's a long way to go.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure, and Ellen's goal to make sure everyone had facts rather than some speculation and comments. We wanted to present the best available evidence possible to the town and to residents. And the only way I know of substantiating legal facts is by getting experts in a particular area to verify what their opinion is. The first opinion by Marjorie Shansky was dated July 3rd, 2014. And I don't know if you read it, but I have it here, and you're welcome to take a look at it. That dealt, as Ellen said, basically with spot zoning and what effect a zoning board action has. They are a legislative body. They have a legislative action authority, and their activities and actions and approvals and denials in the legislative area are generally upheld. So Marjorie's opinion dealt with that, and it was a very good opinion, and it also dealt with spot zoning. Since her July 3rd, 2014 opinion, there were two things that occurred. Number one, the P&Z, as you know, revised the POCD on May 1st, 2015. And there was specific language in the revised POCD that dealt with housing at the Country Club of Woodbridge. We thought it would be important for somebody to take a look at that. The second reason is we became aware of another project in another town in Fairfield County, Ridgefield, that was going through the same kind of experience that we were, having people comment on proposed development on town-owned property. And we contacted the lawyer who was dealing with them, and it happened to be David Grogans, who was an expert in zoning law, as well as his firm, Cohen & Wolf, have an expertise in zoning law. And we asked them basically two questions. What would the precedential effect be on the town if this was approved by the P&Z? What would the precedential effect be if the P&Z turned down an application in another area of town after approving the Country Club at Woodbridge development? And also, what effect did the POCD have, the revised POCD, have in this whole process? And there was another very important element that was brought up in the Ridgefield matter, and that was whether the town could have any control on what happens to the property after there's a transfer. If the residents approve a sale, the property is transferred to the purchaser, can the town have any restrictions on what the future use of that property is? That was a very important element in the Ridgefield case, and we thought it would be very important because there was a lot of comments, and the very valid comments from residents, as to what happens if the property is sold and is flipped to somebody else. We wanted that question to be answered so people would have the real facts on what the law is. And we can only go by what the law is and what a person, a scholar and an expert in that field tells us, and he has done it. So there were really valid reasons, basically for the benefit of the residents of the town of Woodbridge, to get the second opinion. It was different, it was not lawyer shopping, and I think it was money well spent to continue this process of letting people know what the facts are. And I'm available to talk to you at any time about any of this. Attorney Groggins is available to talk to you about this at any time. But we hope that we stay with the facts rather than speculation.
May I?
Yes.
Talking about, I don't want to comment on all other than if we're trying to get at facts, I appreciate that, I applaud that. I, however, wouldn't, if to the extent you're saying that two lawyers' opinions are facts, I take exception to that. They're two lawyers' opinions.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There could be two other lawyers that have a different. I just don't want the public to think that we've all of a sudden established facts by virtue of these two opinions.
Joe, that's a good point.
This issue here, I just want to clear that up.
That's a good point.
That's a very valid point, and that's the fact question had to do with getting the two opinions.
Right.
They are opinions, no question.
They are opinions, and as you know,
and with no due respect to Attorney Groggins or
right.
Attorney Shansky,
Exactly.
they're two opinions.
And as you know, a lawyer, there is no lawyer with any expertise in any field that is going to guarantee anything.
And they're not dispositive of putting that issue before the judge.
Right, absolutely.
And David Grogan said that here, but I've read the opinion, and I think you have read it, Joe. I've been practicing law for 45 years. This is about as good as it gets in terms of a lawyer having an opinion based on certain facts as to what a likely result will be.
I would agree it was a well-written opinion.
Right, good.
I wouldn't agree it's factual in terms of the fact that now that is an established.
But nobody's saying that,
No
Joe.
one's
We
saying
agree
that.
with
We're
you.
not
I just want it clear for those who aren't lawyers.
Right.
No,
because
absolutely.
And
Jerry's talking as a lawyer and talking about facts. They're not
But
facts.
Joe, if there's
We're
other,
all-
if there
we're
are
all
other
agreed.
lawyers out there that have other opinions, I mean,
Yeah.
show us.
But isn't,
that's
I'm not
a good-
suggesting.
but isn't the point really that these are two slightly different topics? The letters address different topics
Yes.
associated
Well,
with
that was
zoning.
Jerry's
Right.
point. I'm not
Right, but
speaking to
I
that.
just want to put that in simple terms. So whether, I agree with you, I mean, a lawyer's opinion is a lawyer's opinion, but one was on topic A and one was on topic B.
That's right.
And I think that's the important distinction.
Exactly.
That's what
To your
Jerry
point,
said.
to follow up on what you're saying.
Well, I
Exactly.
think my point is totally different, but that's okay. My point is.
Well, but it followed from your,
Jerry was telling
Okay.
Maria why he
Fine.
got these, and that's fine, but
Right.
I
fine,
just want it clear there.
That their
Fine.
opinions.
Okay.
Okay.
on different
Um,
topics.
And,
Not my
And of
The
course,
wheelhouse, I'm not a
impetus was
lawyer.
all about zoning, and
yes, it is. It is about zoning.
spotting, or whether it is, what happens to zoning after it's been.
But that
resolved.
matters.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And they're here, Maria, you can read them.
I read
Right here.
Okay, continuing on our fact-finding, we have been looking at this issue of the environmental report. This is something we've been talking about since we're talking about the country club with respect to cost and where we stand. And Tony and I went back to the reports, and I asked Tony to contact our consultants so that we could be brought up to speed. I certainly do not have the expertise of Amy Morella in asking about this. I know she, as I said, she was the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection when this was all going on, and her questions, some of which may be answered tonight. We've given a copy now to our consultants, and I'm happy for them to respond if they're not already part of the presentation. Perhaps if there are some that need longer discussion or whatever, we'll continue it. But I think it's important that people know what the conditions are and what the costs are, because people have spoken to me about, Maria, you sent somebody who wants to purchase the property, and I said, well, are you aware that there is environmental cleanup? And they said, no, and we would not assume that or those costs. So it's important for us to
I'm glad
know.
we're having this, because I'm new to the board and I do not know how this thing has been handled.
Right, and this has been going on for quite a while. And as you'll see, the contamination has been decades old, probably some since the early 70s and some since the late 80s, as I understand it. So we will now
But
hear.
her concern is well taken, because we wrote a report and we're supposed to do something about it within the
Well,
several.
No, we'll find
That's what
out.
we'll hear from the consultants.
great.
So
Thank
we have Brian Washburn and Tom Cecilia from HRP Associates. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I thought what we would do, first, Amy presented, I thought, some very thorough questions, and we do have answers. I think we can answer every question that she has on the list here. Some of the details as far as some of the dates, I know, I don't know the exact date. I know the month I'm comfortable with the month that in which things were done, but not necessarily the exact date. So I thought maybe what we could start with is just sort of a very general overview so you can understand a little bit about the environmental aspects of the country club. Tom Cecilia has been the lead geologist on the investigation, so he knows a lot of the details. So if there's a detailed question, I may defer to Tom to help answer that. And to start off, he's got a map of the country club. We conducted multiple phases of investigation on the property to evaluate the various environmental quality across the golf course. That's not uncommon. It's standard practice in our work to do these types of investigations in phases, because they build, one phase builds on the other phase. And the idea is to, through this phased type of approach, to get an understanding of what types of problems are on the property. At this particular site, we did a very thorough overview of the entire golf course. As Amy mentioned, there were 5 primary operation areas, and as you can imagine with a golf course, a lot of it is covered with the fairways and greens, and those really aren't where the problem areas are on the property. The problem areas are more related to where maintenance is occurring, where storing of, as you can imagine, a golf course uses pesticides and herbicides to help maintain the grounds. So where those chemicals are stored and mixed before they get applied to the fairways and stuff, those are really where the problem areas lie. So when we did our the initial phase here, we looked at the entire property, and we very quickly focused on the maintenance area, which is in the central, sort of south central portion of the property.
When did you start this process? It wasn't recently, right? You've been
looking
at this for a long time.
That's right, and as Amy mentioned, we filed basically when the town took over the property, ownership of the property, because there had been some operations under there that are regulated by the state.
Mm-hmm.
They had to file this Form 3 application, which is what Amy had mentioned earlier. That was filed, I believe, in August 2009.
Right after we bought it, I guess.
Right after, there's a
Okay.
timeline when it has to be filed after the transfer
thanks.
occurs. So that
I can jump in.
yeah.
We started work a couple weeks before the transfer as a preliminary review of the other work that had been done in the past, and then some sampling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some
Thank
of
you.
the-
Just to make it clear, what you found was as a result of the prior owners. It wasn't the town's operations that caused it.
Yeah, that's correct. As you can imagine, the issues that we're really seeing here are pesticides. The arsenic that Amy mentioned is it's a metal, and it's found within the pesticides. The chloridane that she mentioned is a pesticide that had been used on the property. Its use spanned, I don't know if it was used on the property within this, but when it was sold and used throughout the country between the 1940s and 1988. In 1988, it was banned from further use, and that's the the primary pesticide that we're seeing on the property, and it's within the maintenance area, mostly where the chemical was mixed for application, and there were some discarded containers in the back. So it was the way that they handled the materials led to a release on the property. So what we're seeing is a release that is very old. We know it predates 1988 when the use of the pesticide was banned. Pesticides are designed to really stay in the soil. So it's very you don't very often find it in the groundwater at very high levels, and it's not a type of chemical that likes to migrate. So with the investigations we did, very quickly they focused in on the maintenance area. We did a lot of investigation in there. The compounds, the little blue map that Amy showed basically shows the footprint of chloridane that was identified in soil in that around the handling areas and mixing areas. And it was found predominantly in the soil. We did test groundwater. The groundwater testing that we had conducted showed that the groundwater quality within that area was by state and federal standards suitable to drink. So there's essentially no chloridane or pesticides in groundwater of any significance. Let's see what else we got. If I can go through some of your questions that will help clarify a couple of points here. The date on which the Form 3 was filed was in, I believe, August 2009. That predated the October 2009 change in regulation that she mentioned. So the town is not under any requirement or deadline to complete remediation. There are timelines to finish investigations, and there are timelines to begin remediation. And the town has met their requirements to complete the investigation and begin the remediation. Let's see here. About the Phase 3 report that she had, it had been marked draft. That is the final Phase 3 investigation report. And it's dated December 19th, 2011. Since that date, there has been other investigations at the property related to the chloridane that was identified in the maintenance area to help refine that area as far as get a better understanding of what the extent of the impact was, so we knew what areas needed to be remediated. That data is included in a remedial action report, which has been just recently finalized and submitted to the department. Let's see here. As far as a timeline to initiate remediation, we'd have, I interpret that as beginning the preparation of the remedial action plan, which defines what remediation will be done in that area, and that we met that time frame. Beyond that, really the timing of any remediation is dependent on a number of factors really related to the severity and of the contamination and its overall threat to the public. And what I mean by that is in situations where the contamination was a recent release and was expanding, and there were wells nearby that could be threatened, that would be a situation where you would respond very quickly to contain that and mitigate it, get rid of it. In situations where such as what we have at the country club, where we're dealing with an old release, it's not migrating, it's something that was spilled over almost 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago or more. It's not migrating, it's contained, it's been cordoned off so that it's fenced off so that the public doesn't have access to it, and the time frame to address that remediation becomes more a question of available resources as far as when you can undertake the actual cleanup on the property. So I just wanted to make that point. The significant environmental hazard notification, Connecticut has a law that and there's a number of different conditions that create a reporting requirement to the DEP. The one that we found on this property is related to shallow soil contamination. It's the arsenic and the chlordane. It's in a very small, localized point that's right outside one of the maintenance buildings. That we did file notification to the DEP about that condition, and we did respond. We had 30 days to respond. So the initial filing, I think, was in April 2011. We followed up with a letter response in May 2011 indicating that a fence had been put around the area to basically with a sign indicating no trespassing to keep the public out of that area. Just another side note, the maintenance area on the golf course is an area that's not frequented by the public. So people that are playing golf are more contained to the fairways and the greens, and the maintenance area is sort of an isolated area within the country club. Amy mentioned something about the groundwater condition. There is, understand that in the hazard notification requirement, there are certain conditions which require reporting to the DEP, one of which is the shallow soil contamination. It has to be a certain level above the state standard, and that's the one that we reported on. There's another requirement for if the groundwater had been detected above state criteria, then that would be another reporting condition. We don't fall into that category because we don't have groundwater impact that's been identified, pesticide impact in groundwater that's been identified that's above the state standards. So we didn't meet that particular criteria. Let's see here. There are impacts of chlordane and arsenic. Just so you understand what we showed in the report, that the drawing that showed the chlordane, because in our evaluation, there's a number of different compounds that are detected, and for instance, we also have arsenic that's above standard. So what we do is we look for an indicator parameter which basically has a footprint that covers all of the impact that's been identified. And that's what we did on this particular site. We showed the chlordane because its footprint or area that was contaminated encompassed the arsenic that was also detected on the property. And remember, the arsenic is part of the pesticide, is in the mix of the pesticide that was developed by the manufacturer. So we expected to find the arsenic within the areas where we found the chlordane. Let's see here. I think I answered the question about the migration of the chlordane. It's a very old release. It likes to stay in the soil, doesn't like to go into groundwater. That's consistent with what we found during our investigation. Let's see. We did not find any pesticide impact that was above state standards in groundwater. Since we're dealing with an old release that dating back to at least 1988 or even earlier, it's our opinion that it's not migrating. It's something that was happened years and years ago. It's no longer being used at the property, so there's really no potential for an ongoing release of chlordane at the property, which would cause the area to expand. We did inventory drinking water supply wells within 500 feet. We did not meet the condition that required reporting of a threatened well condition, which would, again, just to summarize, would be if we had found groundwater impact by pesticides that was above the state standard, we would have filed a notification to the DEP. That would have been a requirement. I answered the question about the arsenic. It is co-located with the pesticide. And lastly, about the 60 Woodfield Road. It did have a water well on the property. The water well had been recently bleached prior to our sampling. When we sampled it, we detected chloroform in the well, which is a product of the bleaching process. We did notify the DEP of the impact that was identified, and no further action was required for that. Lastly, the estimate, we're estimating a ballpark order of magnitude estimate of about $650,000 to address the chlordane and the arsenic soil issues that are around the maintenance area. And that was developed after the last testing we've done on the property was in November 2011. It was when that investigation was conducted. We did that testing to help refine some of the areas so that we could generate a cost estimate for remediation.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
I'm a little bit confused.
Okay.
You said that there's no contamination, there's no danger, but there was a Form 3 filing, correct?
Yes.
And that it required you to do further investigations on certain things. We had 8 years to finish the study, or
no.
What?
With the filing that the town did, the Form 3 was filed just before that requirement came into practice. So we do not have a deadline to complete the remediation.
Okay, you don't have a deadline, but don't you have, you're required to have a date of beginning, right?
Yes.
Initiating
Yes.
the remediation?
Yes.
So where does the town stand on that?
I interpret the start of a remediation as the very beginning process of preparing a plan to conduct the remediation, and that beginning process began in November 2011 with the testing that was done to refine the area. So we had 3 years to begin the remediation, and when you look at that, so the filing was in 2009. It was like I think, August 2009, so we had to August 2012 to begin the remediation, and we started that testing phase to develop that plan in November 2011.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So you're saying that you interpret, your interpretation is that what you've done in that further testing complies with the time frame. Is that an accepted interpretation? I mean, has that been tested or not? When you say you interpret it, I'm just concerned. Does the state interpret it the same way?
I have not had an issue with that.
Okay. I'm not trying.
Taking
I'm just
that.
trying
No,
to
I understand. You want clarification. I have not had, in my experience, that has been an acceptable approach with DEP. And the biggest, again, in my experience, their concern is progress. They want to see progress made on the site as far as being the areas being that someone has taken responsibility to investigate and clean up the property, and the town is meeting that requirement. We've done 3 phases of investigation. We've completed our remedial action plan, so we're meeting that requirement. Really what drives the shovel in the ground remediation is the severity and how mobile it is, or how big of a threat it is, and so that is really what drives it. And the bottom line is the DEP. These forms are submitted to DEP. They do go through them, and there's a round of letters that they send out to. So they call them a certifying party. The person that signs the Form 3, who accepts the responsibility to investigate and clean up the property, is called the certifying party. They'll send a letter to the certifying party if they feel that they're not happy with the progress that's being made at a site. And we have not. It would go to Tony at the town. I would get copied of it on it as well. And we have not received any letters to that effect.
Well, that's good. And I think what you're suggesting is you've done additional investigation since the Form 3, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
in fact, you've filed this remedial action plan based on that further investigation.
Yes.
And you're suggesting that this further investigation does not indicate that there's any migration of this chlordane into groundwater or indeed beyond the footprint of what you found
That's
previously.
correct.
That's what you're telling us?
Yes.
So Brian, can I ask you a question to follow up on that?
Yes.
So there's no necessary timetable for action, and I think you used the words shovel in the ground action.
Yeah.
And because you haven't found any movement, any migration of the contamination, and just to clarify, I think you did say there was contamination in the ground, you haven't found any in the groundwater that met a level over what's acceptable.
That's correct.
Okay. So based on that and what we've heard tonight, when do you think, and again, going back to your opinion and your using your experience, further action would be needed by the town? So that, I mean, obviously there's a gray area there of what's acceptable on a timetable. I'm sure forever is not acceptable, but in your opinion or your experience, what is acceptable for our town in this?
It's a difficult question. I'd say that in my mind, when and I work with clients in towns all throughout Connecticut on very similar issues, and it becomes really a question of how quickly something might migrate. And if I thought that it was migrating and it was expanding, and there was a threat, an imminent threat that was going to occur, I'd say we need to do it. We need to go out there and we need to do it right away. That said, we don't meet that condition, and there is, I think, a gray area as far as when does it become prudent to address something so that it is taken care of? Because as you mentioned, forever, leaving it there forever is probably not the prudent thing to do. So where do you fall from, we need to go out there today and address this, to forever? I think in this type of situation, it comes down to really working with the town and developing, the resources to undertake such a cleanup, because it's expensive, and it takes, it's a draw, and the funding has to come from somewhere.
Does DEEP get involved in that? Because I know under the new regulations, I don't know, you've told us that there's no time frame to actually complete a remediation because of when we file. But you're filing this new remediation action plan, and you're telling us that based on your opinion and what you found, it doesn't seem to be a particular immediate urgency to go ahead and put the shovel in the ground. But those are all filed with DEEP. My question is, if DEEP had a different opinion, would they tell us of that opinion?
They would.
In other words, we're not just relying on you guys or us to decide when we're going to do this.
They would. You would get a letter, and filing the remedial action plan with the DEP does put them on notice that there is impact on the property that needs to be addressed, and there is a plan in place to address it. So the question becomes is, how long would they let that plan sit until they said, I wonder what's going on?
So is there an answer to that question?
Yeah.
Because
unfortunately, no. I can tell you the way that the DEP works is the state is divided up into sectors, if you will, and there's a division head of each sector, and then there are staff people, and the sites, when they come in and you file a Form 3, they undergo review, because they first have to determine whether this is something that the DEP feels is such a significant threat to the public that they want to stay very intimately involved with the investigation and the remediation process. That was not the case on this site. This site, they chose to delegate it to a licensed environmental professional or LEP. I am an LEP, and so I'm in the LEP that's working on the project for the town. I do have sites in other divisions where I occasionally get calls from the DEP staff person who call me up and say, "Hey, what's going on there? Is there a schedule for continuing an investigation, or continuing or beginning a remediation?" That's very. I know one DEP staff person that actually does that. The others, they're very, they have. As you can imagine, there's a lot of sites in Connecticut that are contaminated. It's a very old state, a very long industrial history. There's a lot of properties out there that are very contaminated, and so the staff people have a lot on their plates. So the likelihood that you'd say we filed the remedial action plan, the likelihood that you'll hear something a month from now saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" is when you're going to get out there and clean up the site is unlikely. A year from now, probably still unlikely. 5 years from now you might start getting a question from DEP of, "Hey, what's going out there? I see you filed something, 5 years ago."
Unless there's an intervening transfer.
An intervening transfer, what happens then is like the paperwork that the town filed when it acquired the property, you'd have to file additional paperwork.
Correct.
In this case, you would file the same type of form. It'd be a Form 3 that says there's been releases at the property, and essentially there's more work to be completed. Who signs that Form 3 as a certifying party could be the town. It could be the person that purchases the property. It's an agreement between the parties who's going to take that. And then that again has a new timeline on it that starts from the date of that Form 3.
It's a lot to this.
And I just had one other follow-up question. $650,000. You sure it's not $660,000? I mean, where'd you come up with that number?
We come up with it. We do estimations quite often. Basically, when you investigate it, when you first come on to a property, the first thing they want to know is what it's going to cost me to investigate.
Well, are these today's dollars?
These numbers were generated a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you looked at pricing since then?
No.
Okay.
I would be comfortable saying that as an order of magnitude estimate, they're still valid.
Okay.
Well, you can imagine our concern because it's underground. But it's kind of confusing to me when the DEP requires you to begin something and continue, and that only a plan is submitted. I would think it's still quite a concern because these things can grow, right?
Well, they can.
It is evidently calling this a low priority. Am I hearing that correctly?
Essentially, yes. If this was a significant threat, they would definitely have an involvement in a higher interest. The important thing to recognize here is it's not expanding, it's not growing, and it's not migrating, because the release occurred, close to 30 years or more ago. If this release occurred yesterday, then it could be, or say you might have think of an above ground storage tank of heating oil tank that's outside your home. Okay. And someone think of it maybe having a spigot on the bottom of it and it's dripping. So if it continues to drip, that's an ongoing release. Small, but it's ongoing.
Right.
So the longer that release it keeps dripping, the larger that area is going to expand. That's not the situation that we had here. This is over a long history of handling, and it's something that occurred many, many years ago.
Anything else? Tony?
I have just two more questions. Obviously, we're discussing this for multiple reasons, and one of the reasons is the property at the country club has been a long-standing issue in town, whether we should sell, whether we should keep it, whether we should do. So I have two questions about the actual golf course and about the sale. When the remediation is done, or the work is started, the actual shovel to ground, as you put it, is that in a very, seeing the map that Amy showed looks more vast than sounds like what you're saying is actually an area of concern that would actually need the work. So would it be contained to a small area? Would the golf course still be able to be open? Would the public be able to be near this area? Or would it be a widespread area on the property itself done at one time?
It's a very small, localized area. I don't want to get into a lot of the details because it could, there are a number of different ways that we can show compliance. Do you want me to stop?
Okay.
There are a number of different ways that we can show compliance. Basically, when we do this cleanup, we have to show, when we're done, that we comply with soil standards that the state has developed. That's the first thing. There are a number of different ways that we can do that. And in this particular cleanup, we've come up with a strategy that uses a number of different ways combined to show that compliance. And it involves, you saw the big footprint of all the blue, but our remediation approach involves digging out hotspot areas within that footprint. That's based sort of really from a very simplistic approach how we've the strategy that we've come up for the soil. The other thing that we have to do is, once that soil cleanup is completed, we now have to continue to test groundwater to show that the groundwater is in compliance with the groundwater standards. Even though we know that the groundwater already complies with the state standards, it's a process that we're required to go through because we removed contaminated soil.
So you need to show that your actions did not then cause
More
that-
contamination.
More or less, yes.
Okay, my last question, I promise. So that's helpful for me to know if we are running the golf course, or the town is, or a private company is running it, and it's actually in operation. My second question is a little different. The opposite. If, and obviously in front of the town is the possibility of sale of the property.
Right.
And obviously, I heard Susan's question, and transfer certainly causes us, again, to file this. And I'm sure it has stopped some sales, but at the same time, have you in your practice seen where the size scope of our contamination, is that typical to stop a transfer, or you've seen them go through without any? Obviously, someone's going to have to address this remediation.
Yeah.
Have you seen sales go through where that has passed on in responsibility to the next owner?
Yeah.
Or has it typically ended the possibility of transfer?
Is it a deal breaker?
Yeah. It depends on the buyer. Right. Quite honestly, and I have seen deals that have gone through where the buyer has assumed the responsibility of the cleanup. I worked on a site a number of years ago where the buyer assumed not only the environmental cleanup of the property, but the site had also been under a solid waste order because there had been there was a tree company that had brought, when they'd clear sites and stuff and of the trees, and they'd bring all the stumps back and they would dump them on the property. On the state's mind, that was an illegal dump, and there was literally acres and acres of stumps that were stacked 40 feet high on this property, and the buyer assumed the responsibility of fulfilling the obligations of that order with the state. So I've seen both.
And then just the last follow-up to that was, you mentioned we would file again if there was a transfer. Does that give the new owner of the property a brand new timeline? Their clock is just starting to tick? And if that's the case, then at what, going back to my forever question, at what end, or what rights do the surrounding residents or people in the area have to try to
protect themselves,
expedite that process? I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost in a strange way. If it keeps getting sold, nothing ever has to get done.
I've never seen that happen, where it's continued been sold and things have just been pushed off. Again,
But doesn't the new requirement apply? If there were a subsequent transfer, as I understand this, please correct me, the 8-year,
You have an 8-year.
the 8-year factor comes into
To
play
get it
at a subsequent.
to get back to
get it
that's
completed.
finish it. Okay, so you do get, so in a strange way, it would expedite. It could.
Could
put an end to it.
Process. It could do it. It could do it. Could. Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No other questions? Well, thank you very much. That was very helpful and
Thank you very
clear for a very complex